What's going on YouTube? This is Boxingwave, and I wanted to do one last video with the heavyweights involving Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou and stuff before we move on and talk about other boxing. Okay. Yesterday I did a video on Tyson Fury against Alexander Usyk and just briefly discussing like my views on the fight and what does it mean now that Fury had his tough fight against Francis Ngannou over the weekend, and also brought up Usyk and his tough fight with Daniel Dubois and broke down the fight a little bit and how I see the fight could go. I think people have lost track and people are just unsure of what would happen and what would be the outcome of all of these fights now because of the recent performances of most of these fighters. And this is why at this point it's good to have the discussions. It's good to break things down and trade ideas on how these fights would go. You can do all the film study you want in the world. If the fight doesn't happen, it really doesn't matter. You know what I mean? We can sit here and make predictions, but if the fight doesn't go down, it really doesn't matter. At this point, especially with this generation, all of these guys, 33 and up, the Joshuas of the world, the Wilders, you know what I mean? Francis Ngannou now, Tyson Fury, all of these guys, whoever hasn't fought at this point, Usyk, they need to fight each other at this point. You know what I mean? And it starts with Fury and Usyk because they are the champions right now. And I think this fight when Ngannou got in the way, it's not a fight. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a fight that shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened now, though. You know what I mean? We're one fight away from being undisputed or getting an undisputed champion at the heavyweight division. And we can close out this long, ongoing debate of who's the best in this generation in this time. And hopefully we have no more delays. Again, I don't expect the fight between Fury and Usyk to happen in December 23rd. But I do expect it to happen next, even with all the drama, unless Fury decides to just retire from the game altogether and that's it. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but we'll see. But moving on, I wanted to speak on Francis Ngannou and the possibility of him fighting Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua next. There's already reports starting, and they're saying that they're having talks. Well, we heard that Ngannou was having talks with Deontay Wilder even prior to this fight, prior to us hearing that Fury is the next opponent. We've heard that they've been in talks. We've heard that they've been in talks about having a 2-fight deal where they're going to do boxing and MMA. So I think with Wilder has already said that he's willing to do the 2 fights. Now that the fight is a lot more hype behind the fight, Ngannou, who's already a well-known fighter, a big fighter, he's the former UFC heavyweight champion. I mean, he's already had a name. He was already established. But coming over and performing the way he did against Fury is just going to make the fight even bigger. And look, I'm going to tell you right now, as far as boxing, my stance has always been the same. These crossover fights are cool, all right? But there's 2 things that I stand down on every time, and it's never going to change. Give us the fights in boxing first that I want. Like, I want Francis Ngannou to fight John Jones more than any other crossover match, right? Because John Jones is over there and Francis Ngannou was over there. It didn't work out with him in the UFC. Fine, he's done with there. But if there was ever an opportunity for John Jones and Francis Ngannou to fight each other, I would want that. I would prioritize that over any crossover match available, especially while they're active. Now if you guys want to retire in a couple of years, they want to do an exhibition, that's cool, that's their business. But right now, I would like for these fighters to stick to what they do. But since Francis is not doing that anymore, at least not with the UFC, he's going to get the money over here in boxing. He just got paid the most he's ever gotten paid in a fight. I don't know the exact purse, but whatever. As far as boxing, I want Usyk and Fury over any other crossover fight. And I want Wilder and Joshua even over any other crossover fight. So I just want to make something clear before I even start talking about this. Let's make that clear. Joshua and Wilder, to me, I want that fight more than anything that involves Francis Ngannou. Okay? But I also realize that these guys have not fought yet, and there have been plenty of attempts to make the fight in the past. And we heard that this fight was supposed to go down on the undercard of Usyk and Fury, when we don't even have confirmation that that fight is even happening. All right? But if you ask me, what do I want first? I want the boxing fights first between the boxers. All right? Francis Ngannou is going to be ranked in the WBC now. He's going to be ranked as a top 10. You know, I don't know how that works now that he lost, but these are the two views I have on that. Now that Francis arguably won, a lot of people feel that he won the fight. He was Fury's one of the toughest fighters that Fury fought. I think it makes sense for him to be ranked, high based on that opponent. It makes sense. A lot of fighters got into the sport and fought, not a lot, but some were highly ranked right away, like a Lomachenko. All right. Loma was one of the greatest amateurs, if not the greatest amateur of all time. So right out the gate, he had the privilege of fighting for a title in his very second fight. Okay? Right out the gate, he was fighting high-ranked fighters all the way through his career, even as a debuted fight. I forgot who he fought in his debut fight. All right, but he didn't go through the tune-ups, and he didn't build his way to fight to a champion. You know what I mean? He got it straight out the gate. Francis Ngannou, different. Yeah, not as much of a great amateur, but he's a champion in his world of combat sports. All right? So it earned him. I don't think it should have earned him the fight, but he got the privilege of fighting the heavyweight champion in his first professional fight. So it makes sense for him to be ranked high based on that performance, because we've seen other champions like Klitschko, like Wilder, like, whoever else, high contenders like Dillian White and Derek Chisora. We see guys fight Fury and not do nearly as well. You know what I'm saying? Wilder did well, but Francis did really well. You know what I mean? And now he's going to be ranked high. The problem I have with it, though, is that, yes, I'm sure there are other heavyweights out there that if you give them the opportunity to fight the very best on his first fight, or fight the champion on their first fight, they would do well too. I'm not trying to overrate the kid, but what if Moses Aitama got his first fight against Tyson Fury? He might have got knocked out, or he might have did well as well. You know what I mean? We don't know. But not everybody gets that opportunity. Especially when a heavyweight champion is, he's still trying to accomplish things. He's still in a mix. It's not like Floyd and Conor McGregor. Floyd was already retired when that fight went down. And now we can sit here and make the argument whether or not that should have been counted as a professional fight. But if that wasn't counted as a professional fight, this was. And yes, we believe it's a circus, but it went down that way. So, look, I would like to see Francis fight Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua. I think both of those fights are cool. What I don't like about it, again, is the timing. We're still trying to get that fight between those two. So now you getting in the middle of it, it bothers me, because it's none of your business right now. You know what I mean? Wilder, Joshua got their own business. We supposed to get that fight going. So you getting away, like, let's just say Francis does win one of those fights. I think we really will never get the fight between Joshua and Wilder at that point. You know what I mean? those two having their losses and going through the ups and downs that they went through, it's already delayed the fight. Plus, you got the politics and all of that, the PBC and all of this, PBC versus Matchroom, the zone stuff. Offers were made. No one ever agreed to any of the offers that were made between both sides. So where are we at today? Well, both of these guys have taken losses. They both taken losses. They both got like 2 or 3 losses on their records. All right. They've both been stopped at some point. Let's get the fight going. You guys are still top tier, But Francis getting the fight, it would kind of derail things a little bit more, especially if Francis is successful. But they're not bad fights. And I do wonder if Francis now got the pull. Does he have the juice in order to force a 2-fight deal with either one of them? Can he enforce that? He should if he can. He's still with the PFL. He says he still wants to fight in MMA. I've said this to you guys over and over again. And if it's your first time listening to me, I'm going to say it again. Any crossover fight, especially at this level, you should enforce a 2-fight deal that involves an MMA fight and a boxing match. Because right now, in the history, yes, there has been, I brought him up before, I know Ray Mercer fought Tim Sylvia, all right, in an MMA fight. I think they both were past it. I think even Tim was past it at that time. And Randy Couture fought James Toney, and I don't know how far Randy was past it. I don't know if this was after the loss. I believe this was after the loss to Brock Lesnar back then. I can't really remember, but James Toney was already past it at that time, and he's still fighting. He's actually going to be fighting Razor Ruddock in like 2 weeks, which is crazy, right? But anyway, that's going to be a pay-per-view. Do a 2-fight deal. And, you have a big enough name now. I mean, you at least in the boxing world, to try to make that happen. You are at a disadvantage because you don't have the experience as these guys do, but you are obviously better than what people, you may be at their level. I think he is at their level. Even if Fury didn't take the fight seriously, when people say like he didn't look in great shape, I mean, has he ever looked in great shape? I mean, the way that his body is shaped, ever since he started gaining weight in the Wilder fights, it never looked good. I don't think he was in his prime then. I thought his prime was the Klitschko fight. I still don't believe that Fury has ever been as good as he was in a Klitschko fight. I know he's getting the knockouts now, and it's great, but I think he was more difficult to beat back against before he had retired, So I don't know how good Fury was, but all I do know is that Francis, from what I can see Francis do and what he was capable of, being explosive, being extremely physically strong, which we knew that already, being able to switch and fight and look comfortable in both stances. I would like to say that, I watched a little bit of the Dillian White fight with Fury yesterday because I remember Dillian White switching in the earlier rounds of the fight. Dillian White didn't look that good. Dillian White didn't look nearly as good as Francis Ngannou. And I'm not even talking about the outcome of the fight and how competitive the fight was. I'm just talking about what I'm seeing from Francis and what I'm seeing from Dillian. Yeah. Just a few days ago, we all thought that any top heavyweight would beat Francis Ngannou on his first boxing match. And we were wrong. He's better than a lot of guys. All right. But I want to see him fight more. And I do want to see him fight someone that is good, just to make sure that fight wasn't just a fluke. But let's be realistic. Financially, and he's here for the money, it doesn't make sense for him to take any other fight right now outside of Fury in a rematch, Wilder, and Anthony Joshua. It doesn't make sense because he can get those fights. Eddie Hearn is coming out saying, let's do a Rumble in the Jungle 2. Let's have the fight in Africa. I was saying that back then. I was saying that about Wilder and Anthony Joshua. Do it in Africa. You know what I mean? You are two black fighters. Anthony Joshua is from Nigerian descent, and I believe Wilder said he was too. You know what I mean? Even though he's American. And Joshua is British. You know what I mean? Do it in Africa. You know, it's their market still to have a fight out there that big, of that caliber. If not, do it out there. That would be great. You know? I know we're having a lot of big fights in Saudi. You know? We're still doing them in Vegas and stuff. But listen, create a market to have it out there. Historically, there have been big fights out there. Do it out there. But if Francis is going to be the opponent of Wilder and Joshua, do it in Africa. That would be great. That'll be something different, you know? And people will fly. The people with the money will fly out there and go. You know what I mean? But as far as the fights, you know, I was talking about this a little the other day when I was live, and I said, I was trying to really think about how these fights could go. I think Wilder and Ngannou will definitely end in a KO. There's no way it wouldn't. Now we've seen Ngannou fight. We know that whoever his next opponent is going to be taking him as serious as possible, right? Because he's had advantages over other Fury opponents like Wilder. His strength on the inside was clearly obvious. Fury didn't know what to do with him on the inside. The fact that he was able to switch, the more, you know, he was a better counterer than Wilder. So Wilder, we know what his major strength is. Power, right hand, big right hand, right? Doesn't have the greatest jab, but we know that he's extremely athletic. He's pretty light on his feet. You know, I think he needs to stay light. You know, I don't think he should be coming in heavy because no matter what weight he comes in, it doesn't matter how heavy he is, it's not going to give him an advantage. You know what I mean? It's going to make him slower. I think he's going to get tired quickly. We've seen that recently with Jamel Charlo and Canelo Alvarez. We've seen that even in the Wilder fight with Fury in the third fight. I just think that Wilder needs to be 220. You know what I mean? Coming in there, no more than 220. Being quick, being fast, being agile, being as quick as he's been, and looking to land the right hand, you know? And if he can catch Ngannou on his way in with a short right hand, he can hurt him that way. I've seen him hurt him with Robert Helenius. I see him hurt Fury with the short right hand. It's not always the right hand from the outside, you know, behind the jab. It's also the short right hand. You see Gerald Washington knocked down, short right hand. There's a lot of short right hands in there with Wilder. So he can throw it and use it. He's developed it in different ways. It's just that with Wilder, winning rounds has always been an issue. And now you're finding another monster who has a big punch too. You know, and I think when you're looking at that fight, and also with Anthony Joshua, Francis Ngannou's approach might be different in their fights. He might not really be as patient as he was against Fury. He might come and start out being a lot more explosive in a Deontay Wilder fight. You know, we've seen Francis Ngannou lose fights before, but he's never really he's always looked durable. We've seen him slow down, you know, we've seen him lose fights in ways where it involved stamina because he's a very big man. But if he fights Deontay Wilder, you know, I think Wilder could be in trouble very early. And I think Ngannou could be, he might walk in and run into something, right? Straight into a right hand. That's going to be a fight that ends in knockout. It's not going to be the same kind of fight. You know, I think Francis has shown that he could do more. He's versatile. And he might impose his size on Wilder. Anthony Joshua is a little different. But I think he could take the same approach, but in a different way. I think there will be points of a fight, if they were to fight, where Francis might ambush him because Joshua is not the greatest when you throwing combinations against him. He kind of clams up. And in those instances, that's where things could be a little troublesome for Anthony Joshua. You know what I mean? I think Wilder, on the other hand, he'll try to get out of the way of it and counter, where Joshua at times he kind of just clams up and locks up and he'll try to move out of danger. So I think Ngannou, I think with Joshua, Ngannou would have more issues because of I guess with Wilder, he's more technically sound. You know what I mean? He tries to not make too many mistakes. He tries to make every punch count. He has more firepower. I don't think he hits one punch knockout power like Wilder does. But I think he has power in both punches, and I think he sets his punches up a little better. All right. But I think in both fights, it's going to be a little bit more. It's going to be a little different for Fury, and they're still good fights, and I would like to see them. And I do think that Francis would have a shot in winning both. And I think the other two have a shot at winning both. All right. But all I know is that if possible, and Francis, if he's smart, he should try to force a two-way fight. One with the PFL and one in a boxing ring. And I don't think that either one of those guys, nor any top boxer would win a fight in an MMA fight with Francis Ngannou. None of them. There's no even they would be so much more at a disadvantage than Francis Ngannou. You know what I mean? They would. It's not like crossing over to boxing, in my opinion, is easier. In my opinion, because MMA, and I'm not trying to compare the sports. I'm not saying that MMA is an easier sport. What I'm saying is that to fight a top tier MMA fighter on your pro fight would be difficult, because boxing is one of the things that they work on. MMA fighters work on. Whereas boxers don't work on the things that the MMA fighters work on. You will have to learn from scratch. The leg kicks, the elbows, the takedowns, the grappling, you know what I mean? All of this different styles, everything, kickbox, everything is all wrapped in one over there. Whereas in boxing, you're using your hands. And I know there's a lot more to it when it comes to using your hands. Yes, when it comes to using your hands, it's much more advanced than MMA. But MMA is everything wrapped into one. You know what I mean? And I don't think those guys have a shot at beating. I mean, even when if it came to striking alone, even striking, you're at a disadvantage, because you're gonna be fighting a guy that's used to kicking people, up top or to the legs. It's just too much more. It's too much you got to be worried about, and you got to train for. And I don't think you can learn that overnight. Where I think MMA fighters that are good strikers, they have some sense of boxing, just because it's part of the preparation. You're just getting a smaller part of it. You're not getting the full part of it, And I think either one of them will take the loss. It's an automatic loss. I think the challenge here is boxing, So that's my views on it. Again, I would like things to stay boxing first. But I also know that, even though Francis is part of the PFL, what big names can they get him in there with? That all of those guys are UFC guys. You know what I mean? I don't think there's any MMA fight outside of John Jones that they can really. He's already fought everybody over there in the UFC. You know what I mean? I really don't know what they're gonna do. As far as the PFL, I don't know who they have over there that has a name that's gonna generate the kind of money that Francis is gonna want now, being involved in boxing. Unless they can do a fight deal with an actual big time boxer. All right. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel, all right? And smash the like button if you love enjoying content. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.